with no problems. Alrighty, guys, sorry for the slight concerns there. As we get this ready to go to the bottom left-hand side, our blue Terran player is Dream, representing Bravestar Gaming. It looks like they're one of the teams that will stick around for another season of the China Team Championship. There's been a couple of teams that have been, I wouldn't say falling apart as much as they've been just disbanding because of players changing. And, for example, Pixel 1 have, Fantasy left and their players went other ways. It'll be interesting to see what teams we have in the finale, kind of in the final setup of the China Team Championship for Season 3 when it starts next year. I'm pretty sure we will get a China Team Championship because there's still teams picking up players, so it'll be interesting to see what it looks like. As in the top right-hand side of the map, Zest is our red Protoss player as we jump into game number 1. So again, best of 3 here, and it's going to be best of 3 throughout the day, all the way through to the finals, which will be best of 5, but again, a 1-0 advantage for the player from the winner bracket. Just because it's not a big lower bracket or anything, we do want to give some advantage to the player coming in from the winner bracket. It's basically just like a GSL group, only we like whack a grand finals on the end. Which is nice, it just gives us that extra series. I wasn't a fan of just doing, I've never been, since Legacy of the Void came out, been a fan of just doing 5 best of 3s, because my god, 5 best of 3s, they just don't last very long sometimes. Especially in Korea, where I feel like the players, I don't know what it is about Korea, but I feel like they just have the tendency to end games more aggressively than they do to have the, tendency to end games more defensively. Like, I feel like in Europe, players are more likely to sit back and take their time and macro up when they have an advantage, whereas in Korea, they're like, oh, this is my timing, I go now because he's slightly weak, and they end the game. And that's always been a thing as well, actually, where Korean groups, or all Korean groups, always usually take less time than all European groups, which is kind of just interesting, right? It's kind of just, it's just strange, different, I suppose. Do you see this probe heading up to the top right-hand side as early scouting from Zest has been pretty standard, right? Sees the command center, got up, didn't see any second gas or crazy shenanigans there. Dream going to build the reactor as part of the wall-off, which is, I mean, I guess it's part of the wall-off no matter what, right? Because even if you move it over here, you're actually still in the wall of the depot. I guess what's nice about this is you actually get a bit more surface area on this, so perhaps that does help out, actually. If you need to repair, there's a bit more surface area to actually repair that reactor in that position, rather than if it was actually between the supply depots, without lowering the supply depots. Because obviously if you lower the supply depots, you can get all the way around. But how often is the case you actually want to lower the wall off and let the units that are kind of attacking you actually have access to your base? Well, not very often, I can tell you that much for free. And as you do see, Dream is going to go around the top side here, and the Reaper will get into the main base. And we'll have a little bit of a look to see what's going on there. Robot Facility is the tech choice, but he's just going to get a probe kill to start, which is, well, definitely not a bad way to start, right? I mean, picks off one probe, he's going to get probe number 2, and, well, I'm not sure if he actually clicked on the Robot Facility. He did see it, but it was right at the end of his life cycle of the Reaper, so, I think he probably does know, because he will have been paying attention to try and figure out what it was. Goes into Cyclone early, there's a good amount of Marines. I tell you what, we've actually seen a lot of Cyclone play the last few days on the stream in TVP. A lot of Magfield Accelerator openings, and just going in towards like a good chunk of Cyclones, basically. It's been kind of crazy, as we do see 2 gates from Zest about to finish up here. So a couple of gates from Zest on the way up, War Prism on the way out. And the Raven here from Dream just coming in as well at the moment, so just getting that Raven up and running. And as we do see the bunker about to finish up on this low ground, and the Marines able to jump on in there in a moment or 2. It's obviously a bit of a weird one because you've got this kind of more open entrance to the natural, and you've also got this very narrow entrance to the natural. Now, it depends on the attack. This is very weak for the Terran, but in all honesty, there's very few attacks nowadays where you can actually move up this very narrow ramp and get something done successfully as the Protoss player, especially because when you get to the top, it's not just this entire space, right? It's a very small gap. You can see already these Stalkers here, they might be able to get the depot, but then what do they do after that, right? Because they have to come so far forward to do much more. Like, you don't have to be fighting here as the Terran player. Dream's getting decent damage done by the War Prism, cancelling that lock-on, saving the Stalkers, and just bringing those back. So Zest applying a little bit of pressure as Dream will continue to sit at the front for the moment. Another lock-on. Going to get a couple of shots off on Stalkers once again. As the Observer here wanders in a bit too far. That's the benefit of having a Raven, doesn't have to scan for it. So does Zest. Still just kind of trying to push up this ramp and not really getting very far just yet. Robobay about halfway done, by the way, and the Nexus starting as well from Zest on the third base. So moving in towards Colossus and establishing a third base. It's not a super fast 3 Nexus because, well, he put out quite a lot of gateway units to be able to apply some pressure here early. As the Robobay comes up, he's not going to go into that kind of massive gateway units to defend either. He's really going to be relying on the tech units, such as the Colossus, to hold as he goes up to the 3 bases. Good defense of the Warp Prism. Just comes straight across there with the Viking and just gets, a bunch of shots off, and that really does just slow this down and push this back basically right away almost. As our Colossus production continues, extended thermal lance on the way. More Marines on the way out, and just going to be seeing the extra racks as well. So Dream is actually not adding on a third CC, and that's pretty important information to have. It looks like he wants to go for a 2 base all in here. That's going to be, I thought he was going to get an interference matrix on the Warp Prism, which would have meant he couldn't have lifted up any of those units, in which case he might have been able to kind of actually get a couple more kills. You can see this army now. We'll start heading out. It's not really strong yet because we're still missing stim, we're still missing combat shields. I mean, you haven't had the benefit of the 2 extra barracks yet either. I imagine Dream's plan is maybe he'll take a third CC behind it, but there's also a real possibility that he just goes for an SCV pull of 5 racks and the +1 attack upgrade finishing. So that seems to be the kind of choice right now. Well, people ask about the music. Let me just turn the music down, because if I turn the music off, people will complain there's no music. But I do think my volume levels are just a little bit off. I'm on a brand new PC, guys, so we're still fiddling with some bits and pieces here and there. The problem is with the StarCraft soundtrack, there's some soundtrack pieces which are really loud, and so it's like, suddenly it's too loud, and then there's some which are actually a little bit quieter, so actually the volume would have been okay from there. That's a nice interference matrix, and the auto turret as well to help out against this. The Warp Prism turns back around, killed by the Viking, so that's pretty crazy as we do see Dream continuing along, and is looking to try and perhaps push up this ramp. And you can siege up the tanks from this low ground as well, remember, as we do see the first pylon being picked up, so the tanks will get sieged up. I mean, similar scenario though, right? You still have to mine out these minerals to realistically push up here successfully. And obviously this position, this extremely choked up position, it should be very good for the 2 Colossus. Should be looking to take full advantage of that. Now, we still don't see a third CC start. You also still don't see the SCVs being pulled in. Tanks should be trying to focus down Colossus here, I feel, but the Widowmines get good shots on the Zealots. Maybe you can keep some momentum going forwards here, actually. So those 2 Colossus, those really are going to be the problem, but I actually like this as well, right? You realize those units are mostly focused over there, so you drop up towards the natural. Fortunately, another Colossus comes out, and the rest of these units will start moving forwards, but Colossus are starting to be in range of the tanks. Well, that's actually just going to straight up fight this now. Cleans out 1 tank, cleans up number 2 in a moment if he wants to go for it. Has to scan for high ground vision there. Those Colossus, just the damage spread between them means they're super low, and he will be able to capitalize. Actually gets both the Colossus and dives in. Widowmine's doing a good job against the Zealots once again. Now there's 1 Colossus which has been interference matrix, so for the moment it's actually only really Stalkers here, which obviously isn't that great, and maybe Dream can actually break down Zest. The Colossus is now going to be targeted down, so suddenly all the splash damage is gone, and that's GG as Dream makes the breakthrough with some very, very cool fights. Wow. Number 2, and let's have a look to see what'll happen. Up 1-0 in the bottom right-hand side of the map. Our red Terran player. Give it up if you're cheering on Dream. Taking on the blue Protoss player in the top left-hand side. It is Zest. Zest obviously back from Home Story Cup. Well, he had a decent run, but when whenever you run into Serral in the lower bracket, it's not gonna end great for you. Let's just be honest, right? And that kind of was his problem. You know, he just kind of ran into Serral, and what more can you do from there? He did start in the winner bracket, but he literally lost to Raynor, beat Solar, and then lost to Serral. So it's Raynor and Serral 3-0 against him. I mean, that's actually just crazy, right? There's something about European ZVP, and it was mentioned kind of going into BlizzCon as well, that Raynor was dominating the Korean ladder, and that he was, especially in CVP, just having like 0 issues at all. He was just steamrolling people. because the style in which he was playing was just something the Koreans were not very good at, and the Korean the Korean Zergs didn't do themselves. And so it was just, I mean, it's crazy that difference, and it was just shown again at Home Story Cup again. Zest goes top of his group, and then he takes down Trap in a PvP. Boom, 0-3 to Reyno, real problem. Then he looks really good again, 3-1 against Solo, and then boom, 0-3 against Sarah. It's just crazy. Those two Zergs from Europe are just on another level at the moment. They really are, it seems. As we do have the SEV of Dream, just going to wander over down towards this bottom right-hand side, and obviously coming back home from just a little bit of a scout, checking for a proxied gateway, but not going all the way across the map. He'll leave that to the Reaper here. So, very confident that if that proxy gateway isn't on the left, it isn't there at all. And I mean, it isn't here at all this game. So we'll see Dream just going across the map with the Reaper. That does mean that SCV stays at home. It's a little bit extra mining. Is there any reason he uses patrol before building, or is it just out of things to do? It's a little bit out of things to do, but it does have an advantage. So if you have a unit on patrol, it's already moving, right? And when it patrols, it actually doesn't slow down when it goes back and forth. It doesn't go here, stop, and turn around. It just instantly turns around. And so when you go to build something, you already have your unit at top speed, because units have acceleration in StarCraft 2. So if you have acceleration, if your unit stood still and then you have to build and it decides to go over here to start, it has to just takes a little bit longer. Whereas if it's already moving, it will go instantly. So it's just a very, very slight difference, and it's why I think a lot of it's just out of, especially when it's because you're just doing it on the early game, it's just out of things to do because it's a minor difference. But it does have that very slight acceleration factor, which is very interesting. I mean, it's something that people actually, casters used to talk about this quite a lot back in like Wings of Liberty as like a big deal. It's one of those things that everyone kind of realizes it's actually not a big deal, and also everyone just kind of does it when they need to. The thing is, it's only really kind of apparent in very few points of the game, right? Because, at this point, you're never going to be having idle SCVs. So it's also just the point of how often do you have an SCV waiting somewhere in particular just to kind of set it up. But yeah, unit acceleration is a big thing. It's one of the reasons why you have to be kind of right. Micro's kind of a little bit tough sometimes with certain units because, for example, Void Rays, they have a pretty slow acceleration. So if you're micro and a Void Ray, you have to be very aware of the fact that when you start to turn it away to run away from attacking a bunker or something, it's going to be a bit slower than it might usually be. It's very cool, actually. It's one of those things that's not really ever talked about anymore, but it's got a lot to do with also kind of micro tricks when you come to stutter step and etc. For example, when you micro Banshee against Marines, there's that kind of micro you can do where you can move, fire, and you never lose speed on the Banshees, right? But if you do that micro incorrectly at the wrong time, the Banshee will stop and then have to accelerate, and then you take damage on the Banshees because it's stopping, accelerating, it's slowing down, so that has to accelerate again. So it's basically one of those things that's just kind of, it creates a lot of the micro interactions in the game, actually, and you just don't really realize it. A few Stalkers from Zest going to push up this ramp. We do see Marines jumping into the bunker. We're just going to be seeing the Raven coming out here. Stimpack and +1 attack on the way. He already has Blink. Zest is just a standard Blink opener into the Robo and the Forge. That third Nexus now coming down over on the right-hand side. So again, that's set up and ready to roll as our Observer will also come down. And it looks like we're going to have a few Stalkers blinking up into the main base, perhaps in just a moment or two. Dream with this Raven being okay for the moment. What's up, Makara Duray? How are you doing? Thank you so much for that Twitch Prime for the 11 months. Much appreciated. Hope you had an amazing time at Home Story Cup. I mean, I say I hope you did. I know you did. Like, who didn't? Who didn't? Those juicy combat shields will get started. Raven is kind of thinking about maybe what it wants to do. Adept, Stalker, coming down to the bottom side of the map. Again, just charge. Continue to chrono boost here. +1 armor on the way. 6 extra gates being brought into play. And a couple of Widow Mines on the way out as well, as Zest looks as though they want to still just keep up the aggression, right? The problem is it's not enough Stalkers to realistically do too much. So there's not enough Stalkers to realistically come in and actually kind of like kill any of these units. But it's nice to keep them out here, because if this army starts to move out, maybe the Raven gets ahead of things, maybe the Medivacs get ahead, then you can make a pretty meaningful snipe pretty early on. This is the kind of push, no 4th and 5th racks. It feels like maybe a 3rd CC will come down behind. I think we just saw an SCV sneaking over here. It's just one of those differences from the last game. He doesn't go up to the 4th and 5th barracks. And it's one of those things where as you start moving out now, Zest is probably a little afraid. But Zest is also playing a completely different style as well. This time he's produced Immortals, no Robo Bay. He's gone into armor upgrades on the Forge, and it's a lot more gateways, so it's much more gateway heavy. And I do feel those styles are much harder to break with SCV pulls. The SCV pulls are great because you can basically soak a lot of... I say SCV pulls, he didn't even SCV pull last game, but 5 racks play in general overwhelms a Protoss player who's relying on certain tech units, because if those tech units go down, they have nothing. Whereas in this scenario, it's very hard to take down a certain unit that's going to basically end the game, and the Protoss has a lot of production to basically match a 5 rack Terran player. So you don't really get that kind of momentum swing you get if you say kill a Colossus, you can then win the game, versus here it's like, well, you pick off an Immortal and that's nice and all, but then there's still going to be a huge amount of gateway units outside of that that's still trading very well. Zealots coming in from the right hand side, a nice interference matrix, 2 interference matrix on both of the Immortals there actually. So that's a pretty big deal as you're going to be seeing those Zealots continue to be picked away at. Zealots continue to take quite a lot of damage here as we do see Stalkers Immortals coming along with the rest of this now. +1 attack and +2 armor on the way. So continue to chrono boost those out as we do see the +1 armor on the Engineering Bay also getting going. Taco Stuff, thank you so much first of all for the 10 bits you just put in the chat, but also thank you so much for the $3 donation. I guess that's probably €3, right? Thank you so much, appreciate it. Thank you for all the support. All those bits, I watch them, man, I know they add up. 5 bits at a time, you get that 5k cheer badge. Onwards and upwards. Thank you so much for all the support, dude. I really appreciate it. You're always in the chat, always watching. Appreciate it. A couple of Libers about to pop out here from Dreamers. A couple Widow Mines will be on the way as well. Obviously, Dream just continue to build up kind of a composition he's already established in this one. He is going to start dropping a little bit. You do have to be careful of where those Stalkers are. You can see already Zest has actually just got the game sense. He's had no vision of this drop. Just has the game sense to say, okay, right, it's the kind of time where probably, you know, you've backed off with the main army. That's probably where you're going to be seeing, you know, medevac, the medevacs kind of leaving to drop. So that's really good game sense by Zest. And in fairness as well, if he's not going for an all-out attack, why not have the Stalkers in the main base? Because they're not, you may as well just prepare yourself for the potential drop, right? Now, he is quite down to the south, so there is a possibility of this coming up top, and he might actually be able to unload. The Raven's been hanging out over here as well. There's the Zealots warping in. Well, the Stalkers have used their blink. He might be able to just target down a few Stalkers here if nothing else. He does get a few, but obviously, especially with the Zealot warping, it's a lot of units, and there's just no way you properly break through that. +3 armor and +2 attack on the way as 2-2 upgrades start on the Engineering base. So, again, slight upgrade lead for the Protoss player. It's nothing the Terran players aren't used to seeing, though, right? Because the Protoss do typically get, especially in this style of play that Zest is going for, it's a compositional choice, which is very focused on getting an early Forge because you need that armor upgrade to really get into, everything nice and easily. So you see Stalkers from the top side, Marauder or 2 being picked away at, Marines as well. A lot of Zealots on the right-hand side, man. They still can't get over how fast they run on this brand new patch. It's actually kind of crazy. Still got a couple Medivacs top left. Obviously, Dream at some point might want to just boost those away. Zest is at this stage where the gateway-based army has done a good job, but it's as Ghosts about to get online, etc., and Liberator counts build up, you just can't stay on pure gateway units. I know there's a couple of Mortals mixed in, but it's just like gateway-heavy comp, and so you do have to start thinking about splash damage. Typically, Storm is a nice way to go because then you can introduce some Archons beforehand and then get the Storm. But he's actually just going to go straight into double Robo Colossus, so he's going to choose the Colossus this time around. And well, what is interesting about this is we probably won't see Vikings out of Dream because he's in a position where he's already got a good amount of Liberators, and you can just deal with Colossus with Liberators. The usual issue is if you open Colossus, you can't just go Liberators because if you only have like 4 to 6 Liberators, Colossus are just going to roll you. Like, it's, especially with playing Stalkers, it's just not enough. But considering the first Colossus are coming out, he's already at 6 Liberators, and he's got a Fusion Core, so he can go into Liberator range and double Starbolt, which will be reacted now because he can build Liberator range off the Fusion Core. Well, now he's going to be at 10 Liberators before any Colossus take a fight, as long as he actually starts building them. He actually hasn't done that yet. prioritizing Ghosts at the moment. But with 10 libs and lib range especially, I mean, lib range is the real deal breaker. That really just means you can get away with no Vikings against that Colossus play. A few Zealots out on the right-hand side, and just going to be seeing a few extra Stalkers warping in as well. Liberators sieged up here. I don't think Zest can realistically make this attack happen, but he will send a bunch of Zealots across towards the natural expansion. You can see already an EMP has to come down to weaken those Zealots up. A good chunk of bio comes back to deal with it. It's a good defense, actually. As long as Dream doesn't lose a Ghost, a really good defense, actually. At the same time, the EMP dropped on the rest of this army, and that gets pushed away as well. Meanwhile, Order Turrets are picking up some probes on the top side of the map, so even that Raven's still getting into some action here. Pretty cool stuff, just aggression all around the place. As we will see this army of Zest trying to actually wrap around the right-hand side and catch those Liberators out of position, which, well, they are. Dream has not responded fast enough. He doesn't have any map control to deal with this. Brand new Liberators getting caught before they can siege even. That's a nice EMP to start this up at the front. Hits all of the Immortals. Takes away a lot of the tankiness of this army, especially when there's no Zealots in here. Hey, these Stalkers are a little bit in trouble now. Now the Colossus, that one reinforcing a bit of a weird spot as well. Going to be able to push this back. Another EMP pops down, Immortal Shields that's recovered, and also hits their barriers off again. It's kind of crazy. A couple of Medivacs were up here as well, by the way. They've finally been recovered. Well, pushing forwards here. Dream just says, I actually feel like I have the numbers to fight this, but I feel like that's a bit of a misjudgment. It's those Colossus, man. They just do so much. The thing is, there's still not enough to then push into the Liberators afterwards. This base, this fourth base, is actually very secure. A lot of Widow Mines, Planetary Fortress. I don't think that goes down to Zealot run-by, so you can kind of commit those units forwards quite heavily. So here we go. The Liberators here to try and save the day. A few of the Liberators that just pull back a bit. We're going to see more Zealots dropping in from the War Prism. This is the issue. There's not actually a lot to deal with those Zealots at the moment, and so Zest looks as though he's just going to barrage his way through here, picking off everything. The Raven goes down. He's got a good amount of units left over. This War Prism is about to come off of Interference Matrix, so you can warp in again. And that's just going to be a warp in of, well, anything actually. I think Zealots. He doesn't have Zealots at the moment, but it could have been a couple of Stalkers as well. I mean, he has the money to do whatever he wants. He has so much gas. And this is where Templar Archives is amazing, by the way, because, you know, if you have the Templar Archives, now you just warp in 10 High Templar with all of that gas, and boom, all of a sudden you have 5 Archons in the army, which is pretty terrifying as well. I mean, Dream's going to be able to defend his natural, but obviously he's lost the third base, and he will be losing the fourth base too. While this front view is very secure against maybe a Zealot run-by, it's not secure enough to hold off the entire army pushing in and killing it off as well. So, 4 observers from Zest, a bit of F2 action going on there, as obviously Dream just gets cleaned up here. In this 15-minute game number 2, it's been a pretty exciting one. See Dream turning around and typing out GG, and Zest type. Let's get this ready to roll as we start to the top left-hand side of the map. Our red Terran player from Bravestar Gaming. It is Dream. Taking on the blue Protoss on the top bottom right-hand side of the map. This is Zest. Game number 3 of the series as we get this set up and ready to go. Gateway Simulator on the way down. Simulacrum, our map. 2 brand new maps played in this best of 3 then. Zen in our first game. Obviously Triton as a map we know already in game number 2. And in game number 3 now, there's Simulacrum. Yeah, I like this one actually. I really liked it when it was in the TLMC, and it's probably one of my favorites, and it's a -0 map, and it's just clean and simple, and you know, it's got a bit of an interesting layout, and yeah, it's just one of those ones that's easy to like, I feel. To get this going. What's up, Montian? Thank you so much for the 24-month resub, the big 2 years. Thank you so much for that. I really appreciate it. And also Improvement SC2 coming in for the 12-month resub, the 1 year. Thank you so much. Says Let's Go Dream. Thank you so much for the support of the player and the resub. Appreciate it. This Dream is expanding, as is Zest, and now the player decides to go across the map. Zest stays at home. Dream stays at home until this Reaper comes out, so 2 minutes of them both just being allowed to kind of do what they want to do. Sitting back and building up here as this Reaper comes down to the lower side, and that will be the first bit of aggression we get to see this game. I love this map as well because there's cleaning bots, which is, by the way, my favorite critter in StarCraft 2. It's great. As you see the Adept shade in after the Reaper, but it's going to jump down. and reposition back around to the top side. So we've been back around to the top and obviously just trying to find a way in, but not really going to be allowed, right? The Adept is going to shade onto the Reaper. No, it decides not to. I think if it shades onto the Reaper can maybe make a move into the main with the way it was moving. There's a fun little back and forth dance though, because obviously it's very tough, because you do not want to let that Reaper in and to get a free scout on the Twilight Council if you can avoid it. And it is avoidable, but it requires you to control it correctly and to, you know, pay attention. So it's really quite intense, these little Reaper movements we're seeing early on in this game. As the Reaper moves down to the bottom side again, Stalker will again be able to get a shot off. And now Blink on the way from the Twilight Council, so getting that Blink going, Corona boosting this out, Cyclone on the way up. A couple extra Marines coming out as well. And that robotics facility dropping down in the main base. So another facility coming in. It's going to see pretty much very standard stuff then from Zest, right, with just this Blink open, and as Blink comes up, you'll be able to get access onto the map. And Dream obviously is a little bit blind still, doesn't know anything about the tech that's going on. In fact, all he's seen is this single Adept. So he has to play pretty safe back at home, and that is a Cyclone first. And a Cyclone kind of covers your bases, right? Especially with a good Marine count. And you will once again go into the Raven as a follow-up. So Raven on its way into the 2 extra barracks. And the Raven really is, you know, it just has so much utility throughout the early stages of the TVP, right? You can get so much done with that Raven. As we see the Reaper escaping away up to this top side, going all the way out to the top. As you see the Blink about to complete here from Zest. So again, that Blink finished up. Observer still on the way up. Nexus on the 3rd base as well. Just a lot of build up here. Forge is going to drop down from Zest as well, so getting that started. As we do have our Stalkers out into the center of the map and continue to move towards the upper left hand side. Bam, 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 bam. Just gonna set the Stalkers then, approaching this bunker and trying to get a bit of damage done. I mean, you know, Dream's set up defensively, right? He shouldn't really take damage to the Stalkers. It's not a great map for blinking up into the main, I don't think. You've got to go quite far away over here to get up there. I mean, Dream still has to appreciate that possibility, but I think Zest's quite happy just building up, and you can see he's going to go for a similar start at game number 2. The Immortal production, the armor upgrade on the Forge being chrono boosted, and just a whole bunch of extra gateways as the 3 bases come online. Server will set up over here and try and just keep an eye out for what's happening. Stalker still just chilling out down on the low ground as GC +1 attack, Stim, combat shields all on the way up. One more gateways coming in and +1 armor coming down to charge halfway along. As that charge gets up to finishing here, we'll probably be in a scenario where we're probably going to be you know, having quite a lot of zealots out on the map. And that's going to give Zest a lot of the map control again if he wants to move around with the armies in these early stages, etc. So, absolutely watching out for that as we do see our Raven coming around this top side here. Marines and Aurora is going to stim forwards here, and we do see Stalkers already in a little bit of trouble being pushed away with this right hand side. Cyclone locks on, Stalker gets picked off. And Dream just approaching the front right now. Zest gathers these units up, and Scan will drop down as well. The Bioforce with the Cyclone picking its way through the rocks, and let's see what Dream can do as Zest comes forward with a few of those Stalkers again. Now he's got an auto turret in the back of his 3rd base. So that Raven showing up and just being a little bit annoying. 3rd CC behind this from Dream again. Not that 5 racks play initially. It will go to 5 racks eventually here. In fact, maybe he actually still built the 5 racks before, but he did 3 CC behind it, right? So it's not the intention of ending the game with this. There is a follow-up available. Great observer positioning from Zest. The ability to just see a lot of these attacks coming in before they happen. Just catch a probe there. The high ground vision just to get rid of this pylon. I mean, that's nice as well, right? Immortal does target the Marauder, able to pick off a kill from the high ground. So it's, again, very high-level stuff we're seeing. Just lots of little bits and pieces of target firing, etc. That's added up. But now we have this Raven here. There's just so much already in the main base, though. He's actually on the hunt for an observer because he knows Zest has figured out that I'm over here somehow. Oh, that's a sniper. That's a full medevac going down. The Stalkers make a play. Zealots being blown up by a whole bunch of Widow Mines as the Bio army here picking away at a bunch of Stalkers. Zealots continue to charge on in, and it looks like Zest has got the numbers to overwhelm. Obviously, a pick off on a medevac to start this was great. The Raven never really added much into this either, so a lot of the units from Dream not really finding their value as Zest is looking to claw this back from that 0-1 deficit he started the series off in. Stalkers out towards the upper left-hand side. We do see the armor upgrade on the Engineering Bay going to be finishing shortly, as we do have Stalkers pushing in towards the third base. Just going to be starting to pick their way through this. Some Marauder going to get picked off. And a Widow Mine or two perhaps in some trouble here as well, because the Observer's already here too. You know what, I mean, Dream's just got an army out on the map, so these Stalkers are going to be pinned very shortly. They've just blinked as well. Maybe he's going to recall. It's actually amazing that he's only going to lose one Stalker in this. I mean, it's the completely correct call. It's just crazy to me, actually, that he can just get out with only losing one Stalker. That's so nice. Picks off Widow Mines, picks off SCVs. Rubber Bay and a second facility starting up in the main base as well. So getting that going as we do have our medevacs heading down to the bottom side. So Dream just going for the larger drops once again here to try and make something happen. He's a little late on the armor in the second engineering base. So going into 2-2 is a little bit delayed, and Zest makes that similar transition through to the Colossus now. He's really just already feeling quite comfortable, I think, in this game, and obviously you get a couple Colossus up here, and it might be very tough for Dream to really hold this off this time around, because he's not going to be able to afford as much as he did before, because he's having to replace a lot of the bio he didn't replace in game number 2, and he's also, he's also kind of having to still kind of deal with the fact he's lost into FCVs, he doesn't quite have a fourth base up yet. It might just be that little bit more difficult. Hey, what's up, AdiTrick? Thank you so much for the 100 bits, saying for the best content ever and the best StarCraft 2 channel. Thank you so much for your very kind words. Glad you're enjoying, and thank you so much for the bits. There's Dream. Comes back up to the top side. He does leave 2 medevacs on the bottom, so he's still got something over here, but we also still have Stalkers in this main base, which you'll see he'll back away from. For the moment, he will just unload, just so he can get blinked on, and has no way to defend himself. Rock's getting knocked down and picking that up as we do see a fourth base in the upper right-hand side. Zest, well, is maybe going to be in some trouble with that in a moment or two. As we do see the bio going to sim forwards and go straight after this. The Nexus already starting to drop. It's going to go down, and that's actually a kill, not a cancel. So fourth base denied for the moment a little bit. Bio going to sim forwards, but it looks like there's enough units over there. There's a lot of Zealots as well. A little bit more bio showing up to try and push these back. Stefan is good. Everything cleaned out on the bottom, just the 2 medevacs making their way out. But Dream keeping this going for the moment. Keeping this going for the moment, as we do have the rest of this army gathering up as well. Out on the bottom, Dream. A couple of these medevacs moving around. Also, just going to see the missile turret and the Sense Tower building up on this left-hand side. Cancel the Sense Tower. Build out a bit further back, maybe just a bit easier to defend that position. I mean, Dream's about to be on 4 bases against, 4 bases sooner from Zest, but delaying that definitely does help his cause. And Stalkers backing away down the bottom side. First Marine gets picked off, ship weapons on the way up, 2-2 upgrades coming in as well, and +2 attack, +3 armor coming in also. So that's still moving around with the main base of this. That's even going to move in towards a forward base here. See, the 5th base choice is very interesting on this map, because especially if you take this 4th base up here and not here, then the 5th base here is actually very down south, and you stretch very far defending 4th and 5th, and generally you want to defend both of those. So taking that 5th base, it's in a very open position. But obviously, kind of makes sense. You see the big round of Zealots in towards the 3rd base. Fire Army starting to pull back against that, as Liberators will have to keep relocating. He has gotten up to a decent Liberator count against these Colossus. And, well, this initial position is not so bad. Bio's still trying to fight those Zealots off. And Zest actually will commit a bit more of the army towards that. The Stalkers coming in to start targeting down Liberators. One of the Liberators coming in to reinforce this as well. Well, the Liberators are doing a lot, but is there just a few too many Zealots? A few extra bio units starting to arrive. You see the Colossus count is starting to go down a little bit. The Zealots definitely getting picked off here towards the end. 21 workers have been killed, so it's a lot of worker damage dealt as these Colossus able to kind of keep this back. Stalker's going to go in after this orbital command. Shot down as well as the Liberators still going in here, going to be able to pick off the Stalkers, pick off the Colossus. As they're still just pressing forwards over this left-hand side. 4 more Liberators on the way up. Advanced Ballistics finishing as well, so we'll give you that Liberator range. As you can just see the bio army pulling back over to the left side. And Zest still kind of knocking on the front door. I mean, 4th base down, right? And so this game takes a turn from Dream killing Zest's 4th base moments ago to now this. Zest doesn't even go for the 3rd, he just saw what is, I guess he killed the 3rd, this is the 4th, right? But he's going to deny mining here with just a couple of Stalkers, and, you know, when you don't even have to commit to the actual killing of a base to basically stop all the mining, he's just parked outside the natural and warping in more and more units. I mean, the one thing you want to do here is not take too bad of a fight, but I feel like you can just go for it, right? Stalkers, well, they should kind of maybe blink so they can get the Liberators more easily. Will also let the Zealots get in more easily. The thing is, the Colossus just are not being taken down at all, so one Liberator will target down that Colossus. There's still one left. I mean, the Zealots in front, there should be no way Dream can take this down. Dream played a pretty great series here, but unfortunately just is not going to turn out to be enough in this. As if you see the 4 Liberators,